Dear friends, welcome to our channel. We are very happy to share with you different stories about love and betrayal from around the world. Now, let's begin today's story journey. Robert stood in his dimly lit workshop, holding the exquisite silver ring he had just completed, a surprise for his 10th wedding anniversary. As a handmade silver artisan, he was extremely meticulous about his work, personally handling every step of the process. At 42, Robert owned a small but reputable silver jewelry workshop in Atlanta, where his pieces were known for their exquisite craftsmanship and unique designs. Though he maintained a steady income by focusing on custom pieces for a niche market, his earnings couldn't be considered abundant. Driving through Atlanta's cool autumn air, Robert returned to his suburban home. The two-story house with its small yard was an achievement he shared with his wife Claire, although it fell far short of the mansions she often admired on social media. Pushing open the front door, the warm scene he had expected wasn't there. The empty living room held only a television playing on mute. Robert hid his handcrafted gift and softly called his wife's name. "Claire, I'm home." The scent of wine wafting from the kitchen told him his wife was home. Claire leaned against the kitchen doorframe, her cheeks slightly flushed, swirling a half glass of red wine in her hand, wearing a black dress Robert had never seen before. "Oh, you're home early today." Claire's tone carried a barely noticeable hint of displeasure. "The workshop closed early. I wanted to surprise you." Robert moved closer for a hug, but felt his wife lean slightly backward, avoiding his affection. Claire took a small sip of wine, her gaze avoiding her husband's eager eyes. "I just finished a call with Ashley. I need to go to a small party at her place tonight. She just got back from traveling in Europe." "Tonight?" Robert raised an eyebrow questioningly. "But didn't we agree to see that new movie tonight?" "Oh my God, I completely forgot about that." Claire didn't seem particularly sorry, but Ashley specially invited me, and she brought back so many interesting things from Paris. I really want to go and see them. "You don't mind if we watch the movie another day, do you?" Robert suppressed his disappointment and forced a smile. "Of course, go ahead. Say hello to Ashley for me." Claire's expression relaxed slightly, and she quickly kissed Robert's cheek, leaving the faint scent of perfume. "I need to be there by 8. I need to get ready now. Don't wait up for me. I might be back late." Robert watched his wife hurry upstairs, a vague worry rising in his chest. He and Claire had been married for 10 years, and although they had no children, they had always maintained a peaceful and harmonious relationship. In recent months, however, Claire seemed like a different person, frequently attending various social events and growing increasingly indifferent to their home life. The Claire who once sincerely praised his small achievements and planned their future together now looked at his work and income with subtle contempt. As a sales manager in a high-end clothing store, Claire's clients were mostly upper-class people, and perhaps this environment had gradually changed her expectations and attitude. After dinner, Claire finished dressing up meticulously, wearing that new dress and high heels, with bright lipstick, looking radiant. She didn't linger, simply saying she might be back very late, and then hurried out the door. Robert sat on the living room couch, the television playing a show he had no heart to watch. His instinct told him things were more complicated than they appeared. He opened his phone, hesitated for a moment, and then dialed Ashley's number. "Ashley, it's me, Robert. Claire just left for your party. I wanted to ask if you need me to pick her up later." Ashley clearly paused on the other end of the line. "Party? Robert, I'm not hosting any party tonight. In fact, I'm spending the weekend at my grandmother's house, not even in Atlanta." Robert's heart sank, but he maintained his composure. "Oh, I must have mixed something up. That's all right. Have a nice weekend." After hanging up, a chill crept up Robert's spine. Claire had lied to him, but why? Where was she going? Who was she meeting? Various possibilities flashed through his mind, but the most terrifying thought gradually became clear. Claire might be having an affair. Over the next few weeks, Robert began to notice more anomalies. Claire often rushed out after receiving messages in the evening, came home later and later, and sometimes was away all weekend claiming to be working. She bought many new clothes and jewelry, explaining they were for work needs, but the prices were obviously beyond her usual spending level. Most painful for Robert was that Claire became increasingly distant, with almost no intimate contact. Finally, on a weekend when Claire claimed to be on a business trip, Robert decided to investigate. He cleverly installed tracking software on Claire's phone and set up a recording program on her laptop. Although these actions made him feel guilty, the deep unease in his heart compelled him to learn the truth. Saturday morning, Claire left home with her suitcase, claiming to attend a 2-day sales training. After she left, Robert immediately checked the location information. To his shock, Claire hadn't gone to the conference center but was driving to a luxury hotel on the other side of the city. By evening, Robert logged into Claire's email and found several exchanges with someone named Matthew planning this weekend rendezvous. The emails were full of intimacy and clear suggestions of a close relationship. More heartbreaking for Robert was discovering that Claire's relationship with this Matthew had been going on for nearly 4 months. Sunday afternoon, Claire returned home, looking radiant, falsely claiming the training had been very successful. Robert endured the pain in his heart, pretending everything was normal. He needed more evidence, needed to understand the full picture of this extramarital affair before deciding how to respond. Over the next month, Robert continued to run his silver jewelry workshop while secretly collecting evidence of Claire's affair. He discovered Matthew was a high-end real estate developer, about 5 years older than Robert, with a distinguished family background and considerable wealth. Through social media clues, Robert found that Claire and Matthew frequently visited the city's most luxurious restaurants and clubs, with Claire always wearing expensive jewelry given by Matthew. As the investigation deepened, Robert found the situation was more serious than he imagined. It wasn't just an ordinary affair. Claire seemed completely immersed in the luxurious life Matthew provided, beginning to despise her marriage and Robert's professional achievements. In chat records with her girlfriends, she repeatedly referred to Robert as just a little craftsman who couldn't provide the life she wanted. The real blow came from a phone recording Robert accidentally intercepted. It was a call between Claire and her friend Sophia. "Seriously, Sophia, you should see where Matthew took me last week. It was like a scene from a movie." Claire's voice was shrill with excitement. "Sounds like you're having a great time." Sophia's tone carried hesitation. "But have you thought about Robert? What if he finds out?" Claire laughed contemptuously. "Robert? He's too focused on his little silver pieces to notice any changes in me. Honestly, my husband only knows how to make small money, while Matthew will give me the whole world. You know what? He's considering taking me on vacation to Paris next month." "But Claire, Robert loves you, and you've been married for 10 years. 10 years of monotony, 10 years of routine," Claire interrupted. "Only now do I understand what I've been missing. Matthew has shown me how different and wonderful life can be. Are you going to tell Robert?" "No, at least not now. I need more time to confirm my relationship with Matthew. If all goes well, I might file for divorce." Hearing this conversation, Robert felt as if he'd been plunged into ice water. 10 years of marriage, in Claire's eyes, could be so easily discarded. The love and effort he had given her meant nothing when faced with material temptation. That night, Robert tossed and turned, his heart intertwined with sadness, anger, and a sense of betrayal. By dawn, he had made his decision. Since Claire thought he only earned small money, since she looked down on his profession and achievements, he would respond in his own way. Not with angry confrontation, not with hysterical arguments, but with a carefully planned revenge. Over the next 2 weeks, Robert behaved as usual, even more attentive and oblivious than before. He told Claire he had taken on an important custom silver jewelry project that required more time, which gave him ample private space to prepare his plan. First, Robert quietly contacted a lawyer friend to understand the legal details about marital property division. Then, he began transferring his savings to a newly opened secret account. Meanwhile, he collected all evidence of Claire's affair, including photos, emails, texts, and call records. Robert's plan wasn't just to protect his assets, but to make Claire truly appreciate the value of the small money she despised and the illusion of the whole world she pursued. After confirming Claire planned another weekend with Matthew, Robert implemented the final step of his plan. Using his workshop tools, he made perfect replicas of all Claire's jewelry, then secretly replaced the originals. These replicas were difficult to distinguish from the real ones even to professionals, but their value was vastly different. Finally, he contacted a private investigator to obtain more information about Matthew. To his surprise, this so-called successful real estate developer was actually heavily in debt, using relationships with wealthy women to maintain his facade of luxury living. Matthew had multiple simultaneous romantic relationships and a history of infidelity. Friday morning, Claire left home again, claiming to be on a business trip. After she left, Robert immediately sprang into action. He removed the cash and genuine jewelry from the home safe, along with most of the deposits from Claire's personal account. In the jewelry box and empty safe, he left a note. "Dear Claire, since you believe I only make small money, while Matthew will give you the whole world, I've decided to take away this small money and jewelry, leaving you to pursue your whole world. By the way, the jewelry you've been wearing recently are replicas I made. The originals were replaced long ago. As for Matthew, perhaps you should ask how he manages 3 affairs simultaneously, and how his company maintains its glossy appearance despite being millions in debt. Goodbye, Claire. I hope you find everything you want. Robert." After writing this note, Robert packed necessary personal items and drove away from the place he once called home. He knew that when Claire returned on Sunday, a disaster would be waiting for her. In some ways, Robert felt he had also gained liberation. 10 years of marriage had come to an end in a way he had never imagined. But he was no longer the poor, deceived, betrayed husband, but a man who had regained control of his own destiny. He drove onto the interstate highway, facing an unknown future, but at least it was a path he had chosen himself. Sunday evening, Claire hummed a cheerful tune as she returned home. The weekend with Matthew had left her in high spirits. They had enjoyed dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant, spent romantic time in a top hotel suite, and planned a European trip for next month. Thinking of the future Matthew had promised, Claire felt a thrill of excitement, a life that Robert could never give her. Pushing open the door, she immediately sensed an unusual silence. Robert's car wasn't in the garage, but that wasn't strange. He might still be busy at his workshop. However, the cold atmosphere in the house made her feel somewhat uneasy. "Robert," she called out, her voice echoing in the empty house. No response. Claire put down her luggage and walked into the living room. Everything looked normal. She went upstairs to the bedroom, opened the closet to change clothes, and noticed some of Robert's clothes were missing. His wedding ring lay on the nightstand, next to a folded note. With confusion, Claire picked up the note and unfolded it to read. As she read each line, her expression changed from confusion to horror, finally turning pale. The note slipped from her trembling hands. "No, this isn't possible," she whispered, rushing to the drawer where she kept her jewelry. The jewelry box was intact. She hurriedly opened it, and all the jewelry seemed to be in place. She picked up a diamond necklace for careful examination. It appeared identical to the original, but her professional sales experience told her this wasn't her original necklace. Panic struck, and Claire ran to the safe in the dressing room, entered the password and pulled open the door, only to find it completely empty, with only a copy of Robert's note lying silently inside. "Damn it," she cursed, immediately taking out her phone to check her bank account. After logging in, she was horrified to discover her personal account had been almost emptied, with only enough balance left to cover a month's living expenses. Claire's world collapsed in an instant. Those valuable pieces of jewelry, years of accumulated savings, all disappeared. Even more frightening was that Robert clearly knew about her relationship with Matthew, and knew more than she had imagined. With trembling fingers, she dialed Matthew's number, which rang several times before being answered. "Matthew, something terrible has happened. Robert found out about us. He took all my jewelry and savings." Claire was almost crying. There was silence on the other end for a moment. "Calm down. Claire, are you sure he took them? Maybe it was a burglary." "No, he left a note. He knows about us. And he says you have several lovers at once, and your company is drowning in debt." Claire's voice became broken with rapid breathing. Another silence. "Listen, Claire, I'm in an important meeting right now. It's not convenient to talk much. We'll discuss this later, okay?" Without waiting for Claire's answer, Matthew hung up. Claire stood frozen, feeling an unprecedented fear and loneliness. She kept calling Robert's phone, but each time it went straight to voicemail. She sent countless text messages, begging him to come back and talk, but there was no response. In the days that followed, Claire's life fell into chaos. She tried many times to contact Matthew, but he either didn't answer his phone or made excuses about being busy with work. Eventually, a cold text message ended their relationship. "Sorry, "Claire, I can't handle this complicated situation right now. I hope you can resolve your problems." Meanwhile, Claire also faced a crisis at work. Her manager informed her that a customer had complained she was using her position to obtain client information for private transactions. Although lacking direct evidence, it was enough to make the company suspicious of her. Worse, several clients who had business dealings with Matthew began to distance themselves from her. Obviously, Matthew had cut all ties with her. Returning to her empty home, Claire seriously examined her situation for the first time. She had lost her savings, jewelry, lover, and might soon lose her job. She began to recall the 10 years spent with Robert. Those mundane days she had once sneered at now seemed so precious. One evening during the second week, Claire received an unsigned email containing only a video link. When she opened it, she saw footage of herself and Matthew intimately interacting in a hotel lobby, as well as them entering an elevator together. Even more shocking were interspersed clips of Matthew having similar interactions with other women. The timestamps showing these occurred during his relationship with Claire. The video ended with a text. "Claire, this is just the tip of the iceberg. If you want to know more about your whole world, please check the attachment." The attachment was a detailed investigation report about Matthew's financial situation and personal life. The report showed Matthew's company was indeed heavily in debt, with multiple projects embroiled in legal disputes, while he maintained his lavish appearance by continuously extracting funds from new love interests. What made Claire feel sick was the report listing at least 4 women in similar situations to hers, all Matthew's concurrent lovers. Claire collapsed powerlessly onto the sofa, feeling waves of dizziness. She had been deceived, not only emotionally, but also in the whole world she thought Matthew could give her. And for this, she had lost her truly loving husband and a 10-year marriage. In the days that followed, Claire's situation worsened. The work complaint eventually led to her suspension pending investigation. Several suspicious transfers previously related to Matthew were flagged by the bank, causing her credit card to be temporarily frozen. She had to cancel all unnecessary expenses and even considered selling the house to make ends meet. During this difficult period, Claire repeatedly tried to contact Robert, but to no avail. She visited his silver jewelry workshop, only to find the store had been sold, with the new owner telling her Robert had left Atlanta. She contacted mutual friends, but no one seemed to know Robert's whereabouts, or those who knew were unwilling to tell her. A month later, Claire received divorce papers from the court. Robert had filed for divorce through his lawyer, with unexpectedly lenient terms. The house would be Claire's, and the money remaining in their joint account would also be left to her. He only took his personal items and work equipment. However, the document clearly stated that all jewelry and funds he had taken would be considered compensation for his emotional damage and would not be returned. Claire sat in the lawyer's office, listening to him explain these terms, her heart filled with mixed emotions. From a legal perspective, Robert's actions were indeed controversial. But considering her infidelity and the moral clauses in their prenuptial agreement, plus the value of the property Robert had left her, the court would likely consider this a relatively fair solution. "If I want to talk to him face to face, is that possible?" Claire asked, her voice carrying a hint of pleading. The lawyer shook his head. "I'm afraid not, Mrs. Miller. My client has explicitly stated he doesn't want any direct contact. If you have any message you wish to convey, you can do so through me." Claire lowered her head, tears silently falling. This was the end of a 10-year marriage, completely shattered because of her greed and betrayal. Leaving the lawyer's office, Claire wandered aimlessly on the street. The early evening lights of Atlanta began to illuminate, with storefronts displaying various jewelry and accessories, all once objects of her pursuit. Now they seemed like nothing more than shiny traps luring people into downfall. Turning a corner, Claire suddenly stopped. Across the street, a high-end jewelry store window displayed a series of exquisite silver pieces, strikingly similar to Robert's work. She involuntarily walked closer and saw the store was named Rebirth Silver, a brand she had never heard of. Entering the store, Claire was deeply attracted by the layout and exhibits. Each piece was full of unique creativity and exquisite craftsmanship, just like Robert's style, yet with a more mature and bold design sense. "Can I help you with anything?" a young female clerk asked kindly. "Who designed these pieces?" Claire struggled to control her emotions. our founder and chief designer. He moved here from another city last year, bringing these amazing designs," the clerk said proudly. His work has now gained the favor of many collectors, and the prices are steadily rising. Claire's heart raced as she pointed to a silver bracelet in a glass case, which bore Robert's signature style. "Can I see this one?" The clerk took out the bracelet, and Claire examined it carefully, finding a tiny mark on the inside, Robert's signature symbol, though slightly altered. "Is the designer in the store now?" Claire asked, her voice trembling. The clerk smiled and shook her head. "No, he rarely comes to the store himself. He prefers to focus on creating in his workshop." Claire nodded, gently putting down the bracelet. "Thank you, I'm just browsing." Walking out of the store, Claire stood on the street, gazing at the silver jewelry in the window. That was Robert's new life, a new life without her. He had moved on, creating new success with his talent and perseverance. And this time, he was no longer underestimated and despised. Back home, Claire sat in the empty living room, looking around at what was once a home full of love and warmth. Now, only she remained, along with a room full of regret. She took out her phone, opened her chat window with Robert, and typed a long message of apology, containing her regret, self-blame, and blessings for his new life. After sending it, she knew she might never get a response, but at least she had spoken from her heart. A few days later, Claire received a call from a jewelry appraisal institution. It turned out that before leaving, Robert had sent photos and detailed information of all her genuine jewelry to several appraisal institutions and auction houses, declaring these items might enter the market through irregular channels. This meant that even if she tried to sell those replicas, they would be immediately identified, and she might even face fraud charges. The same day, she received an official dismissal notice from her company. The investigation found that although there was no direct evidence of misconduct, her personal relationship with Matthew constituted a conflict of interest, violating the company's ethical code. After losing her job, Claire began to seriously consider her future. Although the house was hers, the mortgage payments still needed to be made. Without income or savings, she faced unprecedented financial pressure. For years, immersed in illusory luxury fantasies, she had never really planned for independent living. After being forced to sell some furniture and non-essentials, Claire finally found an ordinary sales job at a jewelry store, with a salary only half of her original one. Every day facing the luxury items that once made her envious, yet no longer having the desire or ability to purchase them, was a different kind of punishment. Several months later, Claire accidentally saw a photo on social media of Robert receiving an award at an international silver jewelry exhibition. He looked vibrant, standing beside an elegant woman, the two appearing intimate yet proper. The comments below the photo were full of praise for his work and affirmation of his business success. Claire closed the page, tears blurring her vision. What she had lost was not just a loyal husband, but a person with real talent and potential. And all this, just because she was bewitched by empty promises and superficial appearances, easily giving up real happiness. A year later, on a rainy day, Claire was packing to move out of the house that had become too big for her. The real estate agent had found a buyer, and although the selling price was less than its original value, it was enough for her to pay off the loan and start anew in a more ordinary community. While clearing the study, she found a small box in the deep corner of a rarely used drawer. Opening it, there was an exquisite silver ring with Claire and Robert's names engraved inside, along with the date of their 10th wedding anniversary. This was the gift he never had the chance to give. Claire carefully picked up the ring, tears flowing once again. She understood this might be the last thing Robert had left for her, the last testimony of the love they once had. On the day she moved into her new home, Claire received a courier package from Robert's lawyer. Inside was a note and a key. The note read, "This is the spare key to the safe, which is under the floor in your bedroom. There are some things inside you might need." Claire immediately rushed back to the old house, finding the hidden safe under the bedroom floor of what was about to become someone else's home. Opening it with the key, she found a folder and a small box inside. The folder contained copies of all important documents from their marriage, including their marriage certificate, property deed, insurance policies, etc. And in the small box were the most meaningful pieces among Claire's lost jewelry, her grandmother's pearl earrings, the first gift Robert had given her, and the jewelry they wore at their wedding. At the bottom of the box was a note: "Regardless, these things with special meaning to you should remain with you. The pearl earrings are your family's heritage, and the other jewelry carries our shared memories, though those memories are now shattered. Take good care of yourself for the rest of your life." Claire clutched the jewelry tightly, tears streaming down. The love and care she had once taken for granted now seemed so precious after losing them. And the man she thought would give her the whole world had long since vanished, without even leaving a word of goodbye. As time passed, Claire began her new life. No luxurious environment, no illusory promises, just a stable job and a modest home. After experiencing betrayal and loss, she gradually understood where true value lies. Behind those shiny jewels and luxurious lifestyles, how much was real and how much was merely a mirage. Sometimes in the quiet of night, she would think of Robert, of the 10 years they spent together. Those days she once considered monotonous, looking back, were filled with genuine warmth. She knew she could never earn his forgiveness, just as she could not forgive herself. At the other end of the city, Robert stood by the window of his new workshop, looking at the distant lights. His career was flourishing, his work widely recognized, and his life gradually improving. However, whenever he saw customers similar to Claire, those old wounds would still faintly ache. He didn't regret his decision and actions. They were a defense of his self-esteem and talent. But at the same time, he also understood that the carefully planned revenge hadn't brought him the satisfaction and release he had imagined. True healing came from re-engaging with creation, from using his hands to create beautiful and lasting works. Perhaps at some unknown moment, in some corner of the city, they might unexpectedly meet. By then, they might be able to calmly nod in acknowledgement, recognize everything that had happened, and then continue on their separate paths. But that profound betrayal and hurt, those belittled efforts and talents, that emptiness behind gorgeous promises, would forever be imprinted in their memories, becoming an eternal warning about greed and loss. And for everyone who hears this story, perhaps they will ask themselves, when shiny temptations arrive, can we distinguish between the real and the illusory? Can we cherish the true feelings we already possess, rather than coveting a seemingly brilliant but possibly fleeting whole world? If this story resonated with you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more wonderful content. We look forward to seeing you in our next story.